Dear listener, welcome into Other People's Shoes, Season 17, entitled Dear. This season, we venture into emotional territories as we explore words left unsent through this intimate process of writing a letter that was never meant to reach its recipient. The raw, unfiltered authenticity that speaks volumes in these letters. These unrevealed stories, confessions, and reflections held within these letters until now are powerful. Welcome to Dear, sincerely, Other People's Shoes.
Welcome to Other People's Shoes. As you know, I am your host, Neil Matthews. Thank you so much for joining me today. Now, I'm really excited. Our guest today hails from a state we haven't been in very often, let's be honest. But when I heard her say it, it did bring up, in this moment, a very hard moment for me. Time machine time. Here we are. I'm going to take you back to McLaughlin, third period, Miss Honeywell's English class. You ready? She makes us watch this amazing movie that I now, years later, have embraced, but at the time kind of pushed away. Field of Dreams. Favorite actor probably of all time, Kevin Costner. There's a scene at the end of the movie where he has a catch with his dad. And let me say this, middle school Neil didn't know what those things coming down his face were, why his eyes were watering. It was not onion related. It was not coming from Frankie, who didn't discover Axe body spray quite yet because it probably wasn't invented. It wasn't from him. It was that moment. There's also another moment in the movie, Field of Dreams, which if you haven't seen it by now, where have you been? Just saying. Where Shoeless Joe Jackson actually says to Kevin Costner's character, "Is this heaven?" He says, "No, this is Iowa." Welcome in my new friend, Julie. Julie, how are you today?
I'm great, Neil. Thanks. Thanks for having me. It's fun to be here.
We wrote all that out in that split second from saying blast off till now. Is that pretty awesome?
That's pretty awesome and close to heaven right here.
It is close to heaven. One day. I just want to have a catch, and I know people do that there, and I don't know if it'll be with my dad, but I want it.
Yeah.
I want it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just grab like little Timmy, who is waiting for his dad there. Sad story for Timmy. Be like, "Son, you want to go have a catch?" And watch him cry. Watch Timmy cry. No, anyway. How are you? What is Iowa like other than the cornfields and the cyclones?
Oh, well, a lot of people think cornfields. I live in eastern Iowa, and there's a lot of hills, forested hills, wooded hills. The western Iowa's very different. Western Iowa has the Luss Hills, which is very prairie-like, rolly. So the only part that's really all fields is kind of the central, especially north central.
Well, it's not Kentucky, I've heard.
No, it's not Kentucky. It can be almost as pretty. I would say the eastern part is even as pretty.
Well, I say that to kind of segue to our friend Amber Cullum.
Yes.
Who is not in Kentucky. I think she's actually still in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. And it's funny that we would say this too. So timing, I was out in North Carolina back in November, and I went to a church out there with a good friend of mine, Jody Howe. Anyway, they had a picture in their lobby, the church lobby, and I wanted to steal it. Are you allowed to steal at church?
No.
Anyway.
You're not allowed to steal anyway, Neil.
Oh, right. There it is. But they had this very farm-like photo. And the reason why I wanted to steal is our house has a very modern farm look that we just had built.
Yeah.
So I really wanted this picture for my house or for the studio. Like rickety old wooden frame. It has this like tan background to it. And then there's the state of North Carolina kind of shaped out. And then there's a triangle right in the middle. It's not the Illuminati, so don't get weirded out, people that like the triangle. The triangle represents Durham, Raleigh, Chapel Hill. They call it the triangle.
Okay.
Anyway, there's a giant triangle in the middle of the state of North Carolina. And underneath it says, start with the triangle and then the rest of the world. And I love that. And I wanted that so bad. And it's still there because I didn't take it. So,
well, good for you.
But anyway, that made me think of Amber because the picture popped up. So that's why I thought of Amber in that moment.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Amber, for introducing us.
Yes, for sure.
Yes. Hopefully we have grace enough for everyone today.
Yes. I think we will.
Little plug on her show. All right. Now we're on to you, chapter 2. So, Julie, help us with this. We love to lead off every show with this question, and that's this. What style of shoe does Julie love to wear?
Oh, I like to wear a variety of shoes. My favorite pair of shoes ever, I bought for like $6. Pair of sandals in Thailand. I went over there with my sons, went exploring a little bit, walked into this open air market. I needed sandals, and they had sandals, and I thought, oh, these are $6. They're not going to be any good. Wore them the whole trip. Wore them for years since. Love them. I also love good UGG boots.
A couple of months back now, probably almost, I would say 2.5 years safely, I put at the end of my signature line of my email, I put in his sandals. And at the time, my executive producer was like, wrote me back and he said, "Hey, love the email. I think it's good to send," because he would read over stuff for me. And he goes, "Hey, you need to take out the signature though." And I was like, "What?" And I had just put it in, like he was the first recipient of said signature. And I said, what do you mean, Garrett? Why do I need to get out? He said, it doesn't fit. It sounds very pretentious. Get rid of it. And I really thought about it and I thought, no. And now it's in everything. Everything I send out personally, everything I send out show-wise. And I had a guest actually write back recently. She said, I love your signature. I didn't catch it at first, but I love it now. And she said, I need to know more about why you wrote that. And I was like, well, here's the thing is I promote so much of being in other people's shoes. Why not be in the greatest person in my mind of all time? And he didn't wear shoes. We hear he wears sandals.
Yeah.
I'm in his sandals, at least trying to every day be in his sandals as I'm trying to be in other people's shoes.
Sure.
So,
that's Christianity, isn't it?
I thought so.
At least an aspect of Christianity.
So, Julie, help us with this. We're in this deer series, not deer like the antelope or the Bambi kind of deer.
We do have those in Iowa.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
We're in the letter kind of deer. In your neighborhood, do you have a mailbox that has the flag that still flips up? Do you have that?
Oh, yes.
What would happen if you went out to the mailbox, not with the flag flipped up? If you went out and you found a letter, who would it be from?
I'd love it to be from my mom. My mom died a year ago. And so that would be amazing. It wouldn't happen. That would be totally amazing.
I almost think of it like the shack.
Yeah.
I really want to find a letter and go have a weekend with God and with Jesus and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And just ask him
Wouldn't
some
that be
questions.
something?
That'd be fun.
Yeah, that would be totally amazing. How many times do we wish that we could just talk to him?
Yeah. In an intimate way, like we could see him.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. We could see him in person and we could ask him the questions and he would answer the questions. That's the big one. Then looking back at that, we wouldn't understand it anyways. Because can we understand God?
It's almost like the lottery. I want to try to not have the money wreck me. And I feel like if I had a conversation I feel like that would wreck me on so many levels because I'd come back and probably have the head the size of Texas. No hat would be able to fit. I would discover and realize that would probably wreck me. And I think that's why God doesn't want to have it with me.
It takes an element of faith out too.
True.
I think.
So for you, who would you want to send a letter to?
Other Christian women, especially that are walking through some difficult times and don't quite know where to turn, who God is. I guess maybe a version of my younger self.
So a younger Julie.
Yeah, I would say that's who I was. I was that Christian lady who thought I knew who God was and thought I knew how to handle life, what life should look like. I discovered I knew none of the above. It caused a lot of extra pain in my life. There was going to be pain anyway. This caused extra pain in my life. My expectations of who God is, what life should look like, was very skewed. I was under the idea that I could be a good person, do the right things, be kind to others. Life would be quite rosy. And not that I wouldn't have some bumps, like, okay, I might not have all the money in my wallet I would like. For the most part, life would go pretty smoothly. And that was such a huge fallacy and just broke me when it didn't go that way.
How did it break you?
Well, it shattered my idea of who God was. I experienced my first pregnancy ended in miscarriage, which broke my heart for one thing, just shattered my impression that God was good at that point. My understanding of God is what I had just said, that he would respond to my relative goodness, bestowing blessings on me that I thought were blessings. Losing a baby to miscarriage did not seem like a blessing to me, wasn't a good thing. I didn't know how to reconcile that with a good God. That started me, Neil, on a journey that transformed my idea of even what good is, but also what a good God is and who our God is. And it's taken a long time. I am not a young person to get to a point where I can say my faith is so much stronger. I trust the Lord so much more. I know. I don't always react this way, but I know that the Lord is faithful and he is trustworthy and I can trust him because of who he is. Cannot be other than trustworthy, other than faithful. And I know that now. And I didn't know that then.
I noticed in our intake form that you went out and listened to 2 episodes, which we don't require. I want to be abundantly clear on that. We do not require someone go listen to 7 episodes and then we sit with them. I just picked a number 7 because it seemed biblical.
7's completionist.
I could have picked 4. I don't require that. I've never required that.
Right.
But you picked 2. You picked Leanne Mancini, and then you picked one that we did with a police officer talking about a letter to his grandfather.
Yeah, that was interesting.
It was interesting. What was more interesting to me is what you didn't pick.
What didn't I pick?
Well, and that's what I wanted to ask you. Very first episode of this season that we did, I did personally. I picked a letter to a child that my wife and I lost, and then my current daughter.
I was wondering about that, Neil, because I did see that one on there. And I was wondering what that represented. And I actually kind of started listening a little bit this morning, and then I ran out of time. I would have listened to that, but I didn't. The reason I started with Leanne was because I know Leanne. I don't know her personally, but I do know of her, and I know her passion for families. And then my husband actually is a retired peace officer. So the other one was very interesting as well. Now I need to go back and listen to that.
Well, listen,
But I'm so sorry.
No, there's no judgment on that. I just...
No. I'm just sorry for your loss.
Well, thank you. There's no judgment on what you picked, by the way. I bring that up because I wonder, and maybe this is where you jump in a little more, is when I released that episode, and again, I'm not making it about me in this moment. I promise. I'm just using myself as the example because it's easier a lot of times to use me than use someone else.
Sure.
When I started out with this season, as we were talking in the green room about the challenges and the angst in some respects of finding folks that really want to get this vulnerable, to talk about a letter, to talk about some very hard things. I heard somewhere years ago in youth conferences or trainings or church upbringing or Awana, probably not Awana, just being funny a little bit.
Yeah, probably.
If you go first when it's hard, it gives somebody else maybe the confidence or the reassurance. Okay, I can go next. Oh, he did it. I can do that too. When I started planning out this season, I thought I knew I was going to do that type of episode. I just didn't know where I was going to put it as a creator. I was like, okay, I could, no. Every spot I tried to put it in, it didn't fit. And I was trying to jam it into a spot. I'm like, it's not fitting. One morning I came out here to the shoe shack. This is away from my house. It's a little studio my brother-in-law built for me. I love it. I can shut the door, turn the heat on, turn the lights on.
I'm jealous I don't have a door.
It's amazing. I just sat down and I recorded it. One take and I recorded it. And I got done and I didn't even listen to it back all the way in its entirety. I just edited it through like I normally do shows. And I put it out. And my wife said, where were you? I said, I was in the shack. She said, we're working on something. I said, yeah. I said, actually, the episode for Wednesday's already done. And she said, already? I said, yeah. That's kind of a thing in our house, is the constant motion of when am I going to edit? When am I going to...
Revolves around that, you bet.
And she knows that. And she's very much embraced that and not pushed against that too much. Anyway, I say that. A lady from church pulled me aside and beeline towards me in the lobby. And she said, I need to talk to you. Points to me. And I'm like, oh, okay. Hands up. What did I do?
Yeah.
What did I say?
Yeah.
Usually, what did I say?
Yeah.
And she said, her name's Gina, sweet lady. And she said, that show made me cry.
Oh.
And I said, I'm sorry. I don't know what to say in this moment.
Yeah.
She said, no. She said, I think that might be your best show ever.
Wow.
And I said, oh, are you sure? And she said, there'll never be another one like that one. And so anyway, back to you, transition.
I missed your best show ever, Neil.
But here's where it comes into you, I think. Is there a moment still in ladies' lives they don't want to talk about?
Yeah.
They don't want to embrace.
Sure.
They see something like that maybe. And this is where my brain started twirling and swirling like a cyclone.
Yeah.
And sorry. That's me being a sports guy. She's from Iowa and the Cyclones are in Iowa.
Cyclones, go.
Iowa State. That's where my brain went, is I thought, interesting.
That is interesting. Is that the first time you shared your story in that vulnerable of a way?
Yes.
Well, bless you for doing that. It is important.
Well, and again,
and it's hard.
Going back to the green room where we were talking about praying for people to come and asking God, are we done? Having a hard time finding guests. And then you show up in this same type of thread of ladies that maybe have had a miscarriage, or maybe ladies that are running from God, or ladies that think, I've done all this bad stuff in my past from high school. God is done with me. I'm damaged goods. I'm the woman caught in the act of adultery. Maybe not to that level, but that embarrassment. And then here Julie is, not that you have an S on your chest standing for super, not your last name, that you can now speak life into them through a letter. So what would you say to a lady that's going to her mailbox, or maybe opening her email in Outlook or AOL, you got mail? I could play the song. What would you say to those ladies that helped you get out of that moment and go running back to the Father, not running away from him? What was that like for you?
That is a loaded question, Neil. Words, when we're in the throes of such difficult circumstances, such painful things, words can seem very meaningless and even cruel. So first, I would just want to sit with that person, reassure you that God will be there when you're ready. not going to leave you. He's not going to run away from you. It was not a turn and run toward God for me. It was a very much a roller coaster journey. I experienced 5 miscarriages in 8 years, and as well as disability. And I have a daughter I caretake for now that is never going to live alone. You talked about embracing and trying to embrace. I had to learn to embrace my daughter for who God made her and not try to separate her from her disabilities. Embracing our situation, accepting our situations, and still trusting that God is faithful and will fulfill his promises for us. That is a difficult thing. And I just want to assure people, the ladies out there that are suffering, whatever you're going through, God is not going to leave you. You can be angry and you can be bitter, and that can last for a while. Don't ever think that he's going to leave you in that place, because he won't. He loves you more than you can ever know, and he can't do otherwise than love you. That's his perfect nature. The Lord is perfect in so many aspects that we cannot even start to comprehend. We can't comprehend the God of the universe. We can't understand why he's allowing. We can take comfort in the fact, as we get through that initial devastation and start looking for the hope that's out there, the hope can only lie in the nature of God. He's perfectly knowing. So he knows your future, the future of our children, the future of my daughter. He knows those things before it ever happens. And he's already there, in fact. And he's so loving. He's perfectly loving. It matches perfectly with his sovereignty. And that's something I had to come to terms and come to grips with, his sovereignty. I knew God as sovereign, but I also didn't know him as fully faithful and trustworthy at that time. When I experienced the miscarriages, started learning to walk through disability with my daughter, I didn't truly believe that he was, because his sovereignty to me was, if he's sovereign, then why is he allowing these things? What we have to understand is he's perfectly sovereign. Yes, he controls it all. Everything that comes to us, he either allows or ordains. It goes through his hands. And that can be a very hurtful thing until we realize that he's also perfectly loving, fully good and kind. So, and a redeemer, a savior. So he will redeem those things for good. We can't see it. We may not never ever see it till heaven. We can hold on to that promise because we know the one who makes the promise is trustworthy. How many times does someone promise you something? But if you don't know the character of that person, how can you trust that promise? And that's what I had to do, Neil. I had to learn more about God, to really immerse myself in who he is, so that I could learn that just because a promise didn't look like it was fulfilled for me doesn't mean it's not going to be, or isn't in a different way. Our expectations get in the way of seeing and believing God's best for us. You need to trust God. Just let yourself grieve. Let yourself go through those periods. Let yourself talk to God in an honest manner. He's big enough. He can handle it. Surrender and rest, knowing that he is going to take care of you, that he's got this too. This is not surprising to him, and it's not something he's doing to punish you. God cares more about our salvation than he cares about our comfort. And a lot of times we can't understand that because we're so wrapped up in our comfort, want life to look like, that we often miss what he's doing in our lives to begin with. He has a plan for you, and you can walk with him in that plan, and he'll be there with you. It's not always going to look the way you want it to. He is trustworthy and he is faithful. My heart goes out to you because it's hard. It's not an easy journey, and it continues to be difficult on this earth. Also come back, Neil. We want to understand the Lord and why he's doing things. If we could understand him, then he wouldn't be a big enough God to handle my problems, my difficulties, your difficulties. Because if I can understand him, he's a pretty minuscule God. A minuscule God cannot handle all of our troubles. Our great, mysterious, incomparable, gracious, merciful God, he can and he will. And he's not left wringing his hands. He has a plan for you, and it's a good one. You just got to hold on.
I appreciate you sharing that. I wonder about these ladies. I'm not one. So
Yeah.
standing women is a little bit being funny here, like trying to understand God.
Yeah.
I don't get it. There's moments where I am left going, what?
Yeah, we feel the same way about you men.
I know. I think it's universal.
Yes.
There are things that I just don't understand.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me too, as much time as you may spend with someone, you could spend 24/7, you could spend, and you still might learn things. You still might go, oh, I forgot that person doesn't like that, or, oh, I forgot that they love that, whatever it may be.
Yes.
We generally, as a society, community of people, have a very short memory and a very short attention span these days, especially it seems like these younger ladies and younger guys. And we forget.
Yes, we do.
What's something we should never forget in your mind that you have said, okay, I'm never gonna forget this? What would that be?
Well, I'll put it this way. The thing I never want to forget is that God is trustworthy, that he has my future, that he has my well-being in mind. The thing I forget all the time is that very thing, Neil. I forget that very thing. I wrote my latest book, Sometimes I Forget, because sometimes I forget. In fact, too often I forget. And it's about the character of God. It's about reminding ourselves of how big he is, but also how gracious he is and how omniscient, omnipotent, all powerful, all loving. I need those reminders. My life isn't all rosy, and none of our lives are all rosy. I don't want to go back to where I question whether God's promises are for me. I don't want to go back to that. I know his promises are for me. I know I can trust him, but I have to constantly remind myself of that. When I look at the future of my daughter and what that might look like when my husband and I are no longer here, she's functionally nonverbal. She's 26, functionally nonverbal, a beautiful soul. Just so blessed to have her. Also very concerned for what that looks like in the future, but God's already there. And I have to continually remind myself. If I don't, I panic and I can't do it in my own strength. And that's what the Lord had to bring me through so much to help me realize I need him and I can trust him. When you were talking about how easily we forget even the little things in our lives, kind of a humorous part of this is my husband ordered pizza one time and I absolutely hate green peppers. And this was not that long ago. We've been married now 35 years this fall. And he ordered pizza and it all had green peppers on it. I blew up. I was like, how can you not know? I don't like green peppers. Felt ashamed the way I responded later. Oh, beyond. But God never responds to us, no matter how many, in that way, no matter how many times we forget that he's faithful, no matter how many times we forget that he is loving and that he is good and what he allows will be good for us because he will redeem it for the good for us and for others. And we have a beautiful future in Christ. And that doesn't mean that there's not pain here. That means we're never alone in our pain because he's always with us. He's invisible and he is a spirit, so he can be with us and be with all of us. He's never torn in too many directions. He can be with Neil at the same time he can be with me. It's never too much for God. He's a God who's near. He's a God who's immanent, who's near us, but he's also a God that is above it all. He's transcendent. So that means he can handle it. He can handle our problems. I can't. And I had to come to that. And that was a difficult place to be. God doesn't get angry when we forget. He just lovingly reminds us. And he may allow things in our lives to help us come to the point where we can surrender more of our control for his. And it's a beautiful place when we can walk in that. I wish I could remember that, Neil, all the time. But I'm human and I need him to hit me over the head with a 2x4.
Do you think there's bell peppers in heaven?
God, I hope not. I don't mean the sweet peppers, just not the green ones.
Sorry. This is where I get in trouble at church, as I was saying, like with Gina, what did I say? Was I in a home group? And
that's all right.
We call that a Naven, where you break the tension with a joke.
We can lighten up a little bit.
That's me. I still struggle with that. Anyway.
That's all right. We need to lighten up a little bit, Neil.
I love to paint word pictures, as you've probably already discovered.
Yeah.
Can you paint that picture for me when there was the aha moment, or maybe there was a series of aha moments, or maybe there was one kind of catalyst moment where you were like, okay, I gotta just fall into him?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
There was probably more than two, but I'll tell you about two of them that were very significant in my life. The first one was after my first miscarriage, and I dropped into a very deep depression. Didn't even know if life was worth living at that point. And it seems very silly given what so many people have gone through. Suffering is suffering, and we shouldn't compare suffering. In my grief, I was in a very deep, dark place. The Lord met me there. He met me with a dream. He showed me my little girl, gave me a picture of him. I assume it was him holding her. And she was probably about 3 months old. And he just whispered into my spirit. And he just said, Julie, here's Sarah. And she's beautiful. She's with me. Now you need to get up and live. And that was profound. It helped me. It didn't suddenly make everything brighter and better. What it did was give me enough of God to have me say, he's with me and there's more to him that I know. And so that started a journey of wanting to come back to him. At that point, I really didn't want anything to do with him prior to that dream. I couldn't understand the pain that he would allow, but that showed me that there was more to it and he was still with me. So I needed to explore more. My faith was not very mature. Whenever I would experience a live birth, of course, I was elated. And he was the greatest God on earth, greatest God ever. When I would have a miscarriage, I would go back, a lot of anger. Again, just why God and why would you allow this in my life, and not understanding what that looked like or why he would do that. The second big one was Rachel was about 4 and had a diagnosis and then had it rescinded. She has some genetic syndrome. I was trying to handle it all on my own. I had 2 little boys who were very rambunctious. One also had a disabled arm, and so we were continuing to doctor with that. And then my daughter, I was trying to figure everything out, do all the research, understand it all. And I just came to a point, we had gone to a training program for parents for children with disabilities. It was actually an autistic program, even though our daughter is not autistic. And so my husband and I were there for a few days, probably the first time we had been away from our children for any length of time. It was a breaking point for me. I lost composure. I lost kind of everything. There was counselors there, and I just crashed weeping. I was pouring it all out. It was ugly crying. I just wish, when this was horrible, I said, I wish Rachel was autistic. And this is horrible because I know autism is a horrible diagnosis to have. I also had known people that had a son who was autistic, and they were able to get help for him, and he showed no signs of autism. I didn't see that for Rachel. Her disabilities were so different. Her diagnosis was not one that I could say, oh yeah, okay, she's just going to be fine. It appeared to be lifelong. I had nothing left, Neil. And at that point, I also had another little boy, a baby, about a year old. So Rachel wasn't walking yet, so I'm carrying them both on hips. And it was my crash and burn. And it's exactly where God needed me to get my attention and to help me surrender my strength for his. Because I was trying to understand everything in my own understanding. I was trying to do everything in my own strength. The Lord knew I couldn't do it. He knew what I needed for this journey of caretaking, and he provided that lovingly. Looking back, I wouldn't say it was a loving thing. Back then, I wouldn't have said that. Looking back, I see his loving hand in it all, honestly, which is real crazy to say because they weren't good things. A miscarriage is never a good thing. The brokenness in this world is not a good thing. And God, I don't think, is up there relishing what we have to go through. I think he's hurting with us because he is a near God and he cares about his children. I also know he cares so much more about our eternity than today, than what I'm walking through right now. He's not going to leave us in it either. He'll be with us.
So just to help me, there were how many miscarriages?
I had 5 miscarriages and 4 live births.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now what is the kid count that are with you currently?
Our 3 boys are on their own. So it's just Rachel who lives with us. And like I said, she's 26. We go from 23 up to almost 30. And she's kind of the third and only girl.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you know Rachel's name means innocent lamb, right?
Yeah. And she is so innocent and naive in her faith. She loves Jesus, and it's one of the most beautiful things. It is one of the most convicting things, Neil. She worships with abandon. She loves the Lord so much. She loves people like to put me to shame. And it's what I needed. I look back on who Julie was, early 20s, and I'm so grateful for where I am now. The faith I have now and the journey he's taken me. And I wouldn't want to go through that again. And I don't wish that on anybody, but the Lord knew exactly. And that's why he's such a personal God. He knew exactly what I needed. He graciously provided that. And I couldn't have said that 25 years ago.
My wife made me read a book a number of years back.
Good for your wife.
Yeah, she does that from time to time. She's pretty solid. I think she's actually 100% or like 5 for 5 on book recommendations, maybe.
Yeah.
This one was a little kid's book. It was like a middle school book. It's called Out of My Mind, and the author's name is Sharon Draper. So she made me read it, and I was like, man, this is a little kid's book. But at the end of it, I was like, I need to like reach out to Sharon Draper and see if we can get her. And sure enough, lo and behold, we got her. So that was a pretty cool, like, read a book, get a guest. It was pretty hard, and now it seems very easy now in these days, as I've learned little nuances and Ambers and people like that in the world. If you haven't read it, I would highly recommend it, only from the standpoint of the main character in the book. Her name is Melanie. She is a nonverbal in a wheelchair, but she has this machine that can allow her to talk by touching words.
Yeah, Rachel has one of those.
Yeah, which I thought was just fascinating that they had that type of technology. So that's just my techie brain going on overdrive.
Yeah.
Thinking about that book in this moment with you and even Rachel is, I always wonder what someone's voice is going to sound like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, Rachel does have approximations. So we do get her voice. And I can get a mom. She says mom, she says dada, and she says approximations of all of her brothers. I always call them her boys. Her brothers' names. She has hi and bye down. She has no. No is very prevalent. Home and yes are kind of her biggies. Those are the ones she uses a lot. I know her voice. I don't know. She's never said, has never been able to say I love you. So that would be a really sweet one. She says it she says it in her actions. She offers these kisses of faith when I'm a mess. She doesn't like people sad. And so she tries to cheer us up. And there are, of course, moments when I'm forgetting again or just feeling human, weeping, upset about having to clean her up again, or difficult. Like when she's sick, it's very difficult because she can't really tell us where it hurts or what's the worst. But she's quick to give out these little grace drops, these kisses, just loving on us and reminding us that things are going to be okay. And she does it with her actions, and it's beautiful. She can be stubborn and ornery like most people. She's very good for me. She keeps me humble. She convicts me in where I need convicting. The Lord uses her mightily in my life. Let's put it that way. And in the lives of many.
See, this is where my imagination gets in trouble and starts maybe perhaps running amok. I could envision you getting to heaven, Rachel's there with you, and she is healed in its entirety. Perfect. Because heaven's perfect, so everyone there must be perfect too, right?
Absolutely.
And she comes up to you, and maybe the very first time you actually hear the words, I love you, is in heaven. And she's standing, she's embracing you, and she's like, Mom, all those times. And maybe she has, I don't know if we have memories. I want to think we do. There's no biblical evidence to say that, but it's my analogy, so I'm going to use it.
That's right. We can think about it.
Yeah. She then thanks you for the all caretaking that you and your husband endured. And she says, Mom, why? Why did you do that? I think I would even ask that in this moment. Is there other people, and I'm not saying, I don't know who, I don't have anybody that jumps to my mind. I would imagine there are some, if we flip that coin over, that would say, hey, I'm out. This is too much. I can't. And they would maybe send their adult child to a facility and allow professionals, quote unquote, to then take on the burden and the challenges and the requirements and the things of taking care of said individual.
Absolutely.
Why have you not done that?
Yeah. Well,
that's me being the cynic when I ask that question.
No. I want to quickly say that there's no judgment for people who choose that option for their child, and many do. That is the best option for some. A long time ago, we thought that was going to be the right thing to do. And my husband and I have flipped on this. At one point, I was like, yep, okay, when she's an adult and 18, we need to find a place for her. We don't want her to lose her parents and her home at the same time. And someday we won't be here. And if she loses both, that might be too traumatic for her. So yes, we need to find a place for her. And my husband was like, I'm not sure about that. Well, then and I was like, I don't think I can do that. My husband's like, well, we probably should. Now we're both on the same page, as we don't feel like that's where God wants her to be right now. And I can't imagine her anywhere else. Now that might change in a few years. I mean, God might reveal something to us. And that's what I pray for, is that he would just guide our steps. And that's truly where we're at and why she's continued to be home with us. And we don't see the green light from the Lord in any other direction at this point. That may change. I have to tell you this, that one of my dreams, I am an outdoor person and I love the woods, and I love running through the prairie, and I love all of that stuff. Rachel she can walk. Her running is a bit compromised and kind of different. It's not a true running form. We've never been just taking hands and going for hikes through the woods. She can't do that. She can push a stroller around in the woods, and she does that. As far as just kind of carefree running, and I've always had this dream of her and I holding hands and running through a meadow in Wisconsin, in the hills of Wisconsin, because it's so beautiful when you have a meadow up there in the middle of all the timber. And that has always been a dream that just kind of follows me. And you know what, Neil? We're going to do that. It's not going to probably be here on earth unless God truly works a miracle, which he can. We will. Rachel and I will run hand in hand in heaven through that meadow. I know it.
Well, I go back to my field of dreams.
Yeah.
Yours might not be, hey, do you want to have a catch? I'm sure that's not yours. Yours might be, do you want to have a run? Do you want to have a hike?
Yeah.
And I think that's a powerful moment for you, for sure. Julie, help us with this. How can folks get in touch with you if there are ladies out there that say, I am struggling with my memory of remembering not only my car keys, my phone, my purse, I don't know what other things are in the purse, because I don't even get into it unless I have to. And even then it's safe. Like hazmat suit, like jump on and then get in.
Yeah. You stay out of there.
I do. I will. How can folks get a copy of the book? What's the best way? And how can someone connect connect with you?
Yeah, the book is actually available anywhere books are sold. So it's Sometimes I Forget, 60 Reminders of Hope for Your Hard Days. It's published by B&H Publishing, so you can get it on their website, but it's through Amazon. You can also go to my website, and I would love to have you come to my website. It's juliesunne.com, JULIESUNNE.com.
And that is your real name. That's not an
That's
author
my real
name. Okay, just checking.
Yeah, don't you love it? Yeah, well, it's not spelled Sunny, but because it's got the E on the end instead. That's how we pronounce it. And go there and sign up for my newsletter, and you'll get some freebies as well. I don't blog as often as I'd like, but I'm hoping to get back into it a little bit more. I do have a lot of encouraging things on there. And, I just my heart is for the women out there that are hurting and going through things. They're just struggling so much to understand who God is, who would allow this, and to just remind you to walk together and remind each other that God is faithful and God is trustworthy, because we need that. We need that community. And so I would love it if they would just come there and we can encourage each other. Reach out to me. I'm on most of the socials as well. So you can always find me, Julie Sunne, or Julie Sunne1 is where I'm at.
Nice. Before we let you go, most letters, back in the day at least, that I remember, generally had a PS at the end of it. So what would be your PS in this moment for those ladies as you're kind of wrapping up your letter? What would be that final thing that you would, okay, PS, what would it be?
PS, God loves you, period.
That was it. That was good.
That was it.
Okay, so they get done reading your letter. They get to the end. They see the PS. I wonder if there's a lady who would, nicely fold up the paper that came and the stationery that it was on and the really nice, maybe girly envelope that it came in. And they put it back in the envelope and they go, well, Julie seems nice. She seems super caring, but I wonder, is Julie really lying? Is she really maybe just, not really believing this? Is she really deceived in some way? I mean, let's face it. She believes in something she can't even see or touch or feel. What would be your response back to that, to those perhaps cynics again in the room?
Yeah, I do believe. I believe because, no, I haven't seen the Lord, but I've seen his work in my life. I've felt him. I can look back and see his hand in it all. There's so many things that in my life that are miraculous, even though I didn't get my miraculous healing perhaps, and I don't have it all together. I don't want to even pretend I do. That's why I needed to write the book, because I needed the reminders that God is faithful. I need that a lot. I need it maybe every 5 minutes. And it's okay if that's what you need. If we could see God again, he would be a much too small of a God to do us any good. He has to be the God of the universe. He has to be perfect in every way, sovereign in every way, loving in every way, gracious in every way. His invisibility is also, yes, we can't see him, but that is also a beautiful characteristic of his, because that means he can be with each one of us at the same time. And he can manifest himself in ways that we need him to. When I was laying face down, crying out to him on a path in the middle of the woods, he was there with me then. And I didn't really realize it until afterwards, when I could sense him being there with me. He was there when Son had a heart ablation done. And he showed me that he was guiding the catheter up into the heart. He showed me that, and he could do that because he is invisible and he is spirit. So he could come to me in that moment. So there's so many of those. Yes, God is faithful. Yes, he's invisible. Yes, we can't see him. Yes, we can't understand him. He's mysterious, but that's what makes God so faithful and so trustworthy.
I love that. Well, Julie, again, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate what you shared, what you gave. I really love your heart, not only for God and for women, your heart for Rachel, and for those ladies that would read this and hear this and hopefully not forget, not easily forgotten, and that they would not just pass by and go, oh, that was another cool episode by Neil. High five, Neil. Great job, Julie. They would really take it to heart and do something with it, for sure. So again, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Neil. It was a pleasure.
Well, guys and gals, kids and campers alike, that is it. That is all. That's our show today. As we get out of here, there's a lot of stuff in the Shoe Shack studio on purpose. Some have said it's cluttery. Some have said it's well decorated. In the joy of moving, I found something that I lost. And I was really sad when I lost it, because I looked everywhere for it. And then lo and behold, I was moving a box one day, and it was at the bottom of this box, and I immediately knew what it was before I even fully revealed it. I took it out and I cleaned it off. I thought, there it is. I thought I lost it. I thought it was gone forever. What is it, you ask? I know you're asking yourself that. It's this squirrel, and I don't even know what it's made out of. Maybe marble. It's not very big. It's about the size of a Funko Pop for those Funko Pop fans. It's a squirrel. Now, the squirrel has a little bit of significance. My granny collected them, sort of. There's a funny story behind that for another time. When I see it, I remember her, and I remember it being in her house, and I remember it being on her shelf as a child and being told not to touch the squirrels. They would bite me. That's what my mom would tell me to deter me from touching them. But I wonder about you. What do you remember, and what will you remember? Don't let an event destroy you and wreck you. Remember that there is somebody out there that loves you and wants you back with him. Remember that today as we get out of here. I want to thank you so much for listening. If you want to connect with us, you can do so on the socials at OPS Podcast Show. You can also connect with us home base, opspodcast.com. You can leave reviews there, voicemails there, all kinds of fun stuff there. And again, don't forget this. When you walk in other people's shoes, you really do get a different perspective on life. Stay tuned till next week when we walk again in other people's shoes.